Very good. Late afternoon, early evening, that break between the two of them. Welcome to Dan Really Likes Wine, presented by Pick and Pay. Welcome to another week where I think it's absolutely steaming hot in Cape Town and the rain is not stopping here in Johannesburg. It feels a bit like living in Wales at the moment if you're up in Gauteng, but it's a very good excuse to drink plenty of red wine in summer when you might normally be gravitating towards something a little lighter. Welcome to the show. Welcome to a really exciting show. We're looking forward to this one all day long, very simply because it involves a rather cool premise. I had initially sent off 4 of my friends in the wine world, down to 3, sadly, one of them unable to join us at the last minute, but I've still got 3 very cool people who I dispatched to their local Pick and Pay, armed with 150 South African Rand. If you're watching this at the moment and you're in the UK, that's about £2 off to go and find on the shelves of Pick and Pay a bottle of white, a bottle of red, which could amount to no more than 150 Rand in total. Now, the 3 people I speak to, one of them just makes hundreds of thousands of bottles of wine, sells them for a fortune, and thus only drinks Burgundy while sitting on his yacht en route to surf holidays. The other 2 are wine celebrities. One of them's a food and wine celebrity, so people just give them vast amounts of first growth and similar. So for all of them, buying wine in the slightly more entry-level category made for a slightly different adventure, and it's one I am relishing the prospect of delving into as the show unfolds. And I matched them. I went off to the Pick and Pay on Nickel, which has got a terrific selection, and I had a bit of a battle, to be honest. What do I do? Although the real battle was working out the maths rather than choosing the actual wine. So in a moment or two, I will introduce you to our guests. I'll have a look at the wine I chose and then see what they came up with. First of all, though, as we kick off this week's show, let's have a look at some news from the world of wine. Well, I don't have news of a wine farm being sold to give you, but there are a few events on the wine horizon. Kicking off with this is Heidi Duminy, who's a regular on the wine show, heading up the Cape Wine Academy at the moment. She is a master of wine. She's got a wonderful palate, personality to match, and she'll be doing a cup classique evening at Chaplin's Grill at 350 Rand per person, including dinner. It is a fabulous offer, 6 different wines, and that is tomorrow evening. So if you want to have a look at that, head over to the Cape Wine Academy Facebook page, and Heidi will have all the details. You can be at Chaplin's Grill tomorrow evening for a lovely night out with Heidi Duminy. And a reminder that Cup Classique is a very underrated category of wine when it comes to food pairing. And one of our guests this evening in particular, I suspect, will vouch for that particular fact. So that is one adventure to have. Another involves another good friend of the show. There is Michael Fridjon. I think that photo was taken about 20 years ago. He's just always looked the same, has Michael Fridjon. Michael is running the Cape Wine Judging 3-day ceremony. Your chance to spend 3 days learning how to judge wine and what goes into it. It's obviously aimed at a particular niche of the wine world, but that's over at Reciprocal. So if you head over to reciprocal.co.za, that's Michael's wine business. It's the last 3 days in March. It's down at the Cullinan in Cape Town. Includes your meals and accommodation, but most importantly, it includes the wisdom of Michael Fridjon and the art of judging wine. And still in the Cape, it's back. Constantia Fresh returns. This is Higo Jacobs. It's the 20th of February. It's going to be out at Buitenverwachting. It's 650 Rand for the afternoon. 4 hours of terrific Constantia wine. Fabulous food. And I think there's going to be some pretty good music there as well. A lovely day out. Haven't been to Constantia Fresh for a few years. It hasn't happened for a little while now. So lovely to see that amongst other wine events that are back. So if you're into that one, Constantia Fresh, go to constantiafresh.com and grab yourself your ticket. So there's some events to get to. Nobody's bought or sold a wine farm since Thursday, to the best of my knowledge. We'll see if there's another one by this Thursday. What I can tell you about tomorrow, our first magazine show of the year comes out. It comes to you from Zoo. That's our host for tomorrow, David Higgs' new spot in Johannesburg. And on the show tomorrow, we're with Stuart Buerter from Takara as we discuss brand new vintages from the Stellenbosch estate. And we're also down at the Camps Bay Retreat, having a look at Method Ancestral and how to make bubbles in a slightly more traditional manner with the team from Vonderling, Matthew Copeling and crew. So that's all coming up on our magazine show that goes out tomorrow morning. Right now, we are live with three people who are very passionate about their wine. One of them has done more than most to link up America in general, California in particular, with South African wine. One of them is a winemaker extraordinaire and sells out his wine every year in about 24 hours, and rightly so. And the third is one of my oldest friends in food and wine. He's one of South Africa's finest chefs. He's got a great palate when it comes to wine as well. And we've had many, many nights together, the end of which neither of us can remember. So a very warm welcome to Tuanni Price, to Duncan Savage, and to Pete Goffe-Wood. Welcome to all of you.
Hey, Dan. How's it going? How are we doing, guys?
Hi, everyone.
I have to say, to get us underway, there was a title that was held by Peter Bubbles Ferreira on Dan Really Likes Wine, and he held it for some time. He's just been blown out the water, Pete Goffe-Wood. The coolest shirt we have ever had on this show. You have the title. Congratulations. It's a wonderful piece of fashion, chef.
I try wherever I can, Dan.
Well, let's kick off with you, Pete. It's been a while since we've caught up in person, which is terribly sad because I had you to thank for the meals that I inflict on many people, having done your Kitchen Cowboys course years and years ago. We've drunk a lot of wine together. While we haven't spent time together, I've been watching quite closely. It looks like, Chef, you've been quite busy in the Camps Bay region over the last little while.
Yes. I've been very fortunate enough, just doing a bit of consulting for a new couple of restaurants on the Camps Bay Strip. With your mate Steve Maresh of Local Grill Frame from Parktown. I'm helping out with a new restaurant, with two restaurants called Beach House, which is a sort of seafood grill kind of hipster bar with DJs and bits and pieces, and then there's a kind of a grill room stroke wine bar kind of vibe, which we call Bovine. It's all about meat and wine. So two funky little restaurants, and we opened just before Christmas, so it's keeping my hands full at the moment, which is really quite exciting. And it's also been quite cool to be back working in Camps Bay. It's actually nearly 20 years since I first worked with Blues, so it's actually quite nice to be back on the strip.
It suggests that there's a little more happening in the restaurant industry. We know it's been a hell of a last couple of years. Do you get the sense that things are, if not back to the way they were, that they're certainly shuffling in the right direction and the industry is gingerly getting back to its feet?
I think it's definitely, I don't know that it'll ever head to the heady heights that it was, but it's certainly opening up. There's a lot more action. People are frequenting the restaurants more than they used to. And there's lots of interesting stuff that seems to be opening. So it's certainly on the right path. I think we are seeing a lot more tourists as well. We've noticed in the last month or so, a lot more tourists, particularly I've noticed it in Camps Bay and at the markets. So yeah, I think we're on the right track. You know, how close we'll ever get to the giddy heights of 2018, I don't know, but we're certainly moving in the right direction.
Very, very pleased to hear that there are places open in Camps Bay, and more importantly, that you're part of them, Pete. They're very family on my horizon when I'm next down in Cape Town. What about you, Tuanni? Because if I look at your social media, you seem to be hosting 15 to 20 wine tastings a week at the moment with the sort of people, and having a great deal of fun with it. What have you been up to over the last stretch, and what's your sense of the recovery of the South African wine industry?
You know what? I thought we were on the road to recovery right before they put us on the red list again. And things were going great. Americans were visiting, and I was doing a lot of tours. But then that slowed down after the red list. But it's starting to pick back up. So I'm really hopeful. I'm really hopeful that, people are starting to come back to town.
It's a role that you play with great relish and great success. It's also one that's so important to the fabric of wine. And I think many people only really realize how important those wine tours and connecting those wine tourists to our estates and to our wine world really is when we saw the gap over the last year or two.
Yes, exactly. I'm trying to do that virtually now. So I have this YouTube series called Tasting Harvest, where I'm just documenting South African wine culture, wine life, and the harvest season. So I'm super excited, and hopefully it'll get people excited about visiting South Africa.
Well, you did a terrific job advertising it to the world. You're going to continue to do that on the value wine side of things in a couple of moments. But let's head over to the surfing winemaker. Duncan, how are the waves in Salt River today, and how are things looking for harvest?
Yeah, there's no waves in Salt River, unfortunately. I wish there was. But I mean, we're not far from the sea, which is pretty good. But it's, Dan, I've said to you before, the wine industry is definitely a recipe to work more and surf less, unfortunately. But we still find the time. I surfed with some mates on Saturday. We had 2 sessions, which was a record for a few of us for the last year or two. We could barely keep our eyes open past 8 o'clock, 1 glass of wine, and we were all asleep. But it was amazing. It was lekker to do. But no, look, Dan, it's a nice time for us. We've had all this busy time in the vineyards. Now we kind of sit back, wait for the grapes to ripen and everything to come in. And it's exciting. You're sort of like a little bit on edge, a little bit stressed from all the bottling. But you kind of just need those first grapes just to click into gear. So it's a we don't get in the water as much, but it's a lekker time of year. It's fantastic. And it's summertime in Cape Town. There's not many better places to be. Dan, you're on mute.
They're normally a little bit of work to be done. Normally the winemakers have got 49 weeks of holiday. Your 3 weeks of actual work coming though, and the harvest begins. We get a sense, I think, the last few years it's just got a little bit later with every passing year. Is that the case with 2022? And what are the initial thoughts on the harvest at hand?
Yeah, look, Dan, everything was pretty late to start with. We had, we were kind of working on 2 weeks late, and then we got nailed. I mean, we didn't really have a summer in the beginning of the season. That sort of kind of into 2021. We had anyone who was in Cape Town at the time, it was super cool, cool evenings, not really clicking. We didn't kind of have the southeaster clicking in it as much as it would have clicked in ordinarily. And then come December, it started to warm up, and now suddenly January, we've had some heat. I mean, I don't know if I'm correct in saying this, but I think we were apparently the hottest place on the planet, which I find hard to believe the other day. But it was really hot for 2 days. We've got a couple more hot days coming up. So it kind of changes the dynamic. We've had, I think after 16, which was a really difficult vintage, we've had, 15 was very good. 16 was very difficult. 17, 18, 19, 20, 21 have actually been, a whole string of really nice, moderate vintages. So to have a bit of heat again is almost to be expected, but we don't know what's going to happen. So we just hang on and see.
Wait for the gods to throw their dice and see what you can make of it. It is your challenge coming up, but I thought I'd distract you with a different challenge. Before I go into it, I can see one of our regular friends of the show and a great friend of South African wine is busy watching from London. Greg Sherwood, how's it, Duncan? When are you coming to visit in London? Or when are you coming to visit us in South Africa, Greg Sherwood? You're long overdue a trip out to come and drink some wine with us under the African sunshine. So this is a challenge. I mentioned it at the top of the show. I sent off our 3 guests today, Tuanni and Pete and Duncan, to their local Pick n Pay. They had 150 rand to play with. They needed a bottle of white and they needed a bottle of red. Does it sound like a fairly simple challenge? Well, let me give you an indication as to how difficult otherwise it might have been, because this is a quick look at me earlier in the week nipping into Pick n Pay and trying to see what I could find with my 150 rand. So this is the challenge I've given myself. I have given to Tuanni, to Sposh, to Mr. Savage and to Pete, is to come into your local Pick n Pay. You've got 150 rand, that's all. You need a bottle of red and a bottle of white. Now, most of these guys are normally drinking bottles at 1,500 rand a bottle. 150 rand for 2, that's the challenge. The Pick n Pay, I think I've come to the right place. So first up, some white wine. Sauvignon Blanc. Thinking about it, you generally get some pretty good value, and there's some really good Sauvignon Blanc at some fairly entry-level prices. My worry though, I'm not somebody who likes really acidic, really green Sauvignon Blanc. Am I going to get something with enough refinement, enough polish? And there are a couple of options here I could look at. And the Port Cleaver at 110 rand, that's leaving me 40 rand for red wine. That's not going to work. But the Fountain of Youth out of Oak Valley, if I could find a 55 rand red, that could be a really good option. Rondebosch, Sauvignon Blanc, and I've never really thought of Rondebosch as a winemaking area, but at 50 rand it looks good value. Sauvignon Blanc is an option, but maybe some Chenin Blanc could be the way to go. So the more I think about this, the more I'm leaning towards Chenin Blanc, partly because it's pretty much my favourite white wine drink at the moment. I'm really enjoying South African Chenin and the variety of style, and it's also a wine that can deliver such good value. Yes, you can buy a bottle of FMC for the GDP of Belgium, but you can also get stuff at a far more reasonable price. Speaking of FMC, here's the other end of Ken's range. This is the all-weather Chenin. This is just 55 rand a bottle from the godfather of Chenin Blanc. What else have you got there? All these drift. Now these guys consistently deliver superb value. That's 75 rand for a really good bottle from a part of South Africa that consistently up in the Greater Kloof Valley just makes a lovely, lovely Chenin. What am I looking at with a red wine? Well, Merlot springs pretty instantly to mind. You know it's going to be smooth, you know it's going to be soft. As a wine at a slightly lower price point, it's maybe a slightly safe bet. And there's some names who I know are safe bets. Leopard's Leaf, the younger brother to La Motte, so that's an option there. You've also got some Laborie at 80 rand, some Durban Hills at 85. These are good prices for a bottle of Merlot. And if you look across here, Porcupine Ridge, part of the vast Buchenholzkirch Empire, that's also one I'd have a look at. The Guardian Peak, 95 rand, I think it's going to be good. I'm leaving 55 rand for my white, trying to do the maths, almost as difficult as deciding which wine I want. So this is real kid in a toy store stuff, not just because I'm surrounded by everything I want in terms of wine, but also when I was a kid, I usually only had a rather small amount of money to try and choose something I wanted from the vast array. So 8-year-old Dan in a toy store is now slightly older Dan in a wine store. And what do I have to look at? Well, there's some really interesting stuff. This is Jacques Stapler. You've seen this on the show before. It's an in-house label. You only find this at Pick and Pay. And this is Tuanni Stapler, Alan Kopsert, who is making it. So you know it is in very, very good hands indeed. Johan Reinecker, his Shiraz Cab Blend. We had that on the show last year. It's a healthy wine. It's the king of organic wine. It comes from Johan Reinecker, 95 rand a bottle, and he gives me 55 to spend on the white wine. Some Lanoy from Bochendal Jacques there, terrific winemaker, especially what he's been doing with red wine. Think of this as perhaps a lower level version of something like the Nicholas. Now this is the Lanoy, and it's only 80 rand a bottle. Gives me 70 to play with when it comes to red, or for something very different. I spotted this hiding away in the corner from the team out at Bosman. Lovely winemaker, lovely vineyard. They're Generation 8 label, 8 generations of the family who've been on the farm. And this is a Grenache. 2021, it's young, but it's a light wine, so that's not too important. And it's something a little different. What on earth am I going to decide on?
So as you can see, there was quite a lot to choose from. Let's get the initial thoughts. Tuanni, when I sent you off, just strolling about, looking in the aisles, were you surprised by how much wine there was available, or was it particularly difficult to come up with something?
So basically, I was in a rush because I worked all day. I did a lot of admin, and then I had to run to Pick and Pay to get my wine. But I did find something really interesting. It's a Vino Tinto. And I got this because you don't usually have that kind of grape in South Africa. So I was like, okay, it was on sale for 40 rand a bottle. And I was like, why not try it? And once it opens up, it's a decent wine. I mean, I would definitely pour this for my not so serious wine drinkers that come over and they want to have some red wine. And it's, it's pretty easy to drink, but it has good structure for tannins. And then I got one of my favorites. This is the Durban Hills sparkling wine, rosé. And I just like this. It's a fun sparkling wine. And this was This was 95 a bottle, and then the red wine was 40 Rand a bottle. So I came under 150. I only spent 130 Rand.
You are you're a good person to speak to if you're managing the budget for the week's wine. Well, you obviously you didn't have too much time, but it clearly wasn't too difficult for you to find a couple of bottles that you did quite like and that still fit your budget.
Yeah, and you know what? I've been thinking about this a lot because during the holiday season, I went through a lot of really, really nice, expensive wines. And I was thinking I need to go to Pick and Pay or grocery stores more often and just get really inexpensive wines just to have at my house so that we can start off with the good stuff and then kind of just go down to the inexpensive wines.
I've got a few friends who, if you watch them closely, you'll see that they've got a couple of different bottles open, and one gets poured into their glass and the other bottle gets poured into everybody else's, if you're watching closely.
That's super
I'm sure
smart.
that doesn't happen in your house, Tuanni.
Super smart. No, I just hide the good bottles under my bed.
All right, so you did have a lot of fun. I want to come back to you and chat to you a little bit more about that, the sense of value. Pete, what about you in terms of heading out shop? First of all, how often are you down just shopping for a bottle of wine at the local grocery store, given that you probably get a reasonable amount of wine given to you, given the field that you're in, and the fact that it's obviously very difficult for a star of your magnitude to go out in public in the first place?
Yeah, well, let's just say that people don't send me stuff like they used to, Dan. Those days are long since gone. In fact, if anything, I've become quite the master of selecting wines under 100 Rand the last 2 years. That's my go-to stuff. So I actually found it not at all challenging. I thought it was quite interesting. In fact, I ended up spending 300 Rand and getting 4 bottles because there was just too much to choose from. So in my first combo, which ended up as 75 Rand a piece, was the Albies Drift, as you mentioned, from Breda Kloof. I've got the 2020 Cab, which is soft and smooth and beautiful drinking, and the Bait and Blanc, which for my money is probably one of the best value wines in this country. It's a white blend that will feature on anybody's wine list, and at 75 Rand, it's a steal. And then, of course, I couldn't help myself. So I then also want to check Wolf Trap at 65 Rand. And this is a 2020. This is a Chenin, Viognier, and Grenache Blanc blend. And again, Kaapseug Kaleidoscope at $80. So I got one pairing at 140 and one pairing at 150. Quid's in, really. It was easy. And there was a couple of other, all of that Albies Drift range is at 75. They've got all the whites, all the reds, a couple of blends. There's actually quite a lot of pretty decent drinking wine in that kind of under 100 Rand, in that sort of 60 to 90 range. I found it quite easy to put a little selection together.
I think what you've done there, a couple of key things. If you are looking to get exceptional value for money, with Breda Kloof, you've gone for an area which is known for its value. It makes very good wine and consistently, I think, almost undersells itself in terms of price. Then with your Wolf Trap, that's pretty much a declassified Boekenhoutskloof, so you know it's going to be a really, really high level of wine. And then with Kaleidoscope in Dani, again, you've got a winemaker who really does make very, very good wine, and then I think generally gets his maths wrong and probably forgets to put the right price on half of it.
Yeah, and also the Kaleidoscope's a 2019 to boot. So, a couple of years on it as well. So a decent vintage. So yeah, no, I was quite pleased with my selection.
I think it's a terrific section, and well done for you. Out of interest, you've got 4 of them there. What would South Africa's coolest chef be serving with those 4 particular wines?
Wow. Okay, that's an interesting. Well, I think in today's weather, I think it's about 30 degrees here at the moment in Hout Bay. Definitely a little bit of lionfish, something like a nice grilled yellowtail on the fire with either the Bait and Blanc or the Wolf Trap. Both nice, rich kind of blends. So a little grilled yellowtail would go down a treat. For either of the reds, I'd keep it light on a day like today, and maybe some lamb chops or just a little bit of burry. Nice, rich, fatty burry. Coal of that on the fire. Nothing else but a nice chilled glass of wine. I put both of these reds. I have put both of these reds in the fridge because it's so scorching down here. A nice chilled glass of either of these with a little burry fresh off the fire. Can't go wrong.
Salivating already. Dinner is at Pete's house. We'll put up his address on screen in just a moment. I think that's a super selection. I like Tuanni's as well. At those bubbles, the Portuguese, really nice selection. What though of the winemaker? What of the man whose wine sells out before he's even put it on sale? Duncan Savage, how often would you, given the fact that you get to work those 2 days a week when you actually do, and are surrounded by tens of thousands of bottles. When was the last time before today that you actually went into a supermarket to buy some wine?
Yeah, it's been a while, Dan, to be honest. But, you know, in the wine industry, you've always got lots of mates who you swap a bit of wine with. You know, there's that like Derek Kilpin who kind of breaks our bank balances every month, what he's selling. But, you know, it's the supermarket side of things. I haven't actually been in the supermarket for a long time. So this was amazing. And I cheated a little bit, much like Pete. I spent 313 Rand, and my 313 Rand got me 5.25 liters of wine. Can you believe it? So I went in there with two hats on there. I went in with my student hat on, and I went in as my Duncan Savage as a 44-year-old guy in the wine industry hat, looking for some good value. So in my first two glasses, I mean, you wouldn't, I've got a lovely glass of red. If you look at that color, it looks like it could almost be burgundy. And then I have a lovely glass of white. If you look at that color, it looks like it could be sort of Mosel Riesling or something along the lines. And this was my student choice. And I thought I had to serve them in Zolto glasses because these two Zolto glasses, I think they're 850 Rand a piece or something like that. So just, if you think about the price of the wine, it's ridiculous. So when I was a student, well, when I was in standard 8, my first wine experience was we used to go to the rugby field before we went to the under 18 clubs, and we used to neck this stuff, Autumn Harvest Crackling. And very interesting about this was on my till slip, it says 55 Rand plus deposit. I didn't even know you could take these back. Anyway, so that's Autumn Harvest Crackling, probably for the first time ever in a Zolto Burgundy glass. And one of the old stalwarts, you know, and I have to say, it's actually bloody good. I mean, there's a lot of people who've joked about slipping this into blind tastings and confusing the living daylights out of a lot of guys in the wine industry. But like I say, you know, almost sort of Burgundian in look and feel is a good old South African classic in Tussies. And this little bottle, I mean, we drank lots of this as students. You can imagine Elsenburg, you know, what we were doing at that time. We had no money, and this stuff went down like a homesick mole. It was, it's just fantastic. And I have to say, for 38 Rand, the wine is incredible. And the only thing about it, actually, as someone who farms a lot of his own vineyards, I don't know how they get this in bottle at 38 Rand. Someone's losing money somewhere. I don't know. Probably the farmers, unfortunately. And then, so that was my student hats. And then I thought, you know, I've got to up the game a little bit. You actually mentioned one of his bottles just now when you were talking about it. I had lunch with the old boy last week. He's a bloody legend. Old Ken Forrester, the Petty Shannon. I couldn't resist this. I thought for 65 Rand, it's a really nice drink. And as Pete was saying, you know, considering the weather in Cape Town at the moment, you know, you stick this in the ice buckets, lays around at the pool or on the beach, and it's very nice to drink. And then another guy, and it's also, you know, like for me, when I go to the supermarket, it's funny how it gets these days. You often look for your mates' wines. You know, it's not about just looking for random wines on the shelf that have a pretty label you think might be nice. You know, oh, geez, I had lunch with Ken last week. Let's get a bottle of Ken's wine. And you also spoke about this little wine earlier. We're giving the Statelers a good punt, but they're such good people. Donnie and his dad, Donnie Senior, I mean, they're absolute legends of the industry. We're actually crushing some grapes for another little venture that we do with the Statelers this year. So I thought it was a really fitting bottle. And then I have to say, I know I'm talking too much, but I have to just add one thing is my bonus bottle that threw me over the 150 Rand for my two pairings. I've never tried this stuff. I don't know, you know, if you told me that you put a label with your face on it, Dan, I could understand that they could sell the volume they've sold. But with these faces, I'm not so sure. I haven't tasted it yet, but I'm going to try it while we're chatting.
That's a terrific selection. Well, open that Four Cousins up for me because I'd love to get your thoughts on it. I think we've got a terrific selection of wine. I'm going to reveal mine in just a moment. Before I do, Tuanni, jump back. I don't know if you've opened yours yet.
to give us a bit of a flavor profile and tell us if you've been rewarded by your investment?
Yeah, I think it's a great value for 40 Rand. I mean, it's a decent bottle of wine. It's very earthy, so if you like more like ripe fruit flavors, it's really not ripe fruit flavors. It's more like underripe fruit flavors. Very woody. Yeah, the tannins are a little bit more aggressive or assertive than I like. They're not like smooth and elegant, but they're there. And if you just leave it open for a little while, it's great. And if you want to make sangria, it's even better.
You and my wife speak a similar language, Tuanni. I've had to wrestle some bottles out of her hands that have been going into sangria and I've needed to save. Open those bubbles as well if you haven't already, and we'll get a sense from you in a moment of what you feel they're like. Looking at my wine, well, I got it down to 3 pairings. There were a few wines that almost made the cut. There was a Boschendal Lannoy, the Cabernet Sauvignon Merlot blend that Jacques making at Boschendal. Had a bit of a look at that. I actually had a look at some Alvy's Drift, not Pete's Red, but some of their Shannon. There were a couple of others that almost made it. But in the end, I actually mirrored Duncan Savage, so I'm feeling very proud of myself. I clearly have equally good taste. The Petty Shannon. So Duncan, you and I were on at one with our approval of Mr. Forrester's Petty Shannon. 65 Rand a bottle. It really is exceptional value from the master of Chenin Blanc. And then this one, which I think I mentioned in a little video we did out at Bosman. There's a terrific winemaker, and this is their Grenache. And that was a sense, and Duncan, maybe you can tell me if I'm on the right track there, that when I'm looking for really good value in wine, there are certain grapes that I felt, because they're a bit softer, they're a bit gentler, maybe the tannin won't be quite so aggressive, that might be ones to look at if it's the end of January and I don't really have much money with which to buy some wine.
Yeah, look, the Grenache side of it, I mean, there's a lot of Grenache is actually a little bit more expensive because it's become quite fashionable, and you know, the guys are looking to some of these vineyards up in the Piccaninny Kloof, and it all gets a bit pricey. So Grenache, I don't know, you didn't mention what was the actual price of it. I mean, the fact that it's in this tasting means it's a great value. But the wines are they light, they're fresh, and as you say, for this time of year, it's not breaking the bank. You can pop it. The nice thing with Grenache is you can chill it slightly, take it down to 16 degrees, and it becomes such a refreshing drink. It's got a little bit of tannin that just gives you a little bit of structure with your meal, but at the same time, that slightly chilled temperature just adds the refreshment of the afternoon. It's you're starting with that Ken Forrester Shannon or whatever it might be at the swimming pool, and you move in for dinner and you have a glass of that Grenache slightly chilled. It'll be fantastic.
Yeah, it was 85 Rand a bottle, so coupled with my 65 for my Ken Forrester got me my full 150, and you can probably make it out there. It's a wonderfully light color, and it's got that beautiful sour cherry nose. It's just soft and gentle and delicious. Have you opened that Four Cousins yet, Mr. Savage?
Dan, I have that baby in this beautiful Zalto. It's again, I think, a first for Four Cousins, but it's I'd definitely go for the Tussies ahead of this. I think there's a little bit more structure in the Four Cousins than the Tussies. There's a little bit more sugar as well. But good old Tussies, I have to say, I don't know what's all in there, probably pinotage, a bit of Cinsault, and a whole bunch of other things. And hopefully you never know whether it's product of Argentina or, yes, product of South Africa, this bottle. But it's got lots of bright red fruits. And I think if you put this wine into a Zalto Burgundy glass and poured it for a couple of guys, they'd maybe swirl it around and think they were drinking something different. So again, considering the volume of production, and it's ironic in many ways, because it's fun to buy these things and to taste them, because we've all had such so many good times with things like Tussies in the past. But if you think the one problem South Africa has is some of our iconic brands like Tassenberg, Chateau Libertas are cheap, cheerful wines. We're lacking those icons really at the top. And it's, if you look at, I was actually looking for a bottle of Chateau Libertas, and I didn't find one at the Pick and Pay. Because Chateau Libertas, some of the Chateau Libertas, Ken and I were talking about it the other day. 57 Chateau Libertas is one of the greatest wines I've ever drunk in my life. And you can drink across a number of vintages, and they're amazing. So we've just got the dynamic of the industry is changing, and And I mean, thanks to old Greg, he's one of the guys who commentates a lot on South Africa, which is great, punting the industry, what happens here and all of that, flying the flag. So it's quite cool to see that dynamic's going to change. Anyway, I'm talking too much again. I'm going to go back to the Tussies rather than the Four Cousins.
You mentioned the Chateau Libertas. If I go back 4 years ago, the best wine I had in 2018 was a 1978 Chateau Libertas, and it was just glorious. Drank it for my birthday and my wife's. There's two good 1978 vintages ourselves, and it was delightful. Pete, you will have had many such wines over the years. Obviously, we have wines in that top and revered echelon of South African wine, the Sardis and the Mullineaux and the Savages, which are not inexpensive, and they rightly lay claim to some fairly expensive prices. But there is a lot of wine, as today shows and as our wine history shows, where we've actually got some stuff that doesn't cost a huge amount, but delivers really, really good South African wine.
No question about that, Dan. In fact, funny you should mention the Chateau Libertas. I was at dinner with some friends on Saturday night, and someone produced a bottle of 2001 Chateau Libertas that was an absolute revelation to drink. It was beautiful. It was still quite fresh. It was rich. There was great fruit on it. It really was an amazing drink. In fact, we'd had some couple of older bottles of wine, and that was, I think, the wine of the evening was the 2001 Chateau Libertas. No, look, I think we've always there's a certain amount of wine snobbery involved with thousands of stickers and beautiful bottles and we got to a point where I think it started with the Gem, one of the first reds that was offered for like 700 Rand plus, and then everyone started to go into these sort of having these premium wines. And I think we forget, that we're really, really good at great table wines. I think our table wines are some of the best in the world. And just some of the stuff that we've all picked to drink today just shows you that you don't have to be taking out a second mortgage on your house in order to drink a couple of decent bottles of wine a week. I'll always have a special place for some really, really top stuff. But for someone who drinks wine every day, the kind of price that we're looking at, the 75, 80 range, there is magnificent, great drinking stuff. And I think a lot of it's standing the test of time. I mean, the fact that we're having conversations about our favorite vintages of Chateau Libertas says vast amounts about the quality of that echelon or that layer of wine that as wine snobs we kind of have a tendency to look down on that as a sort of, well, no, we don't go there, it's too cheap. But a testament to the guys who are making wines at that price, still exceptional quality. The Bait and Verwachen, the Bait and Blanc, that Bosman range that you spoke about, the Wolfka, all of the Albi's drifts. I mean, Albi's drift, I also tasted, which I had in my fridge this week, was their Viognier, also at 75 Rand. Magnificent drinking, chilled at this time of year. You cannot get better than that. More refreshing, fruity. I really think that our more affordable wines don't get the kudos that they're due. They're well made, they're affordable, and they're accessible.
Out of interest, we've just seen one of, not just South Africa, one of the world's most exciting youngish winemakers with his Alto glasses, drinking autumn late harvest Tussenberg and Four Cousins. Is there a food equivalent? Because if I look, I'm seeing at top restaurants more and more. I'm seeing things like beef short rib, which was looked down upon not that long ago as a cheap cut to be bought when you'd really run out of money at the end of the month. But I sense there's a space where, just as some of the wine that's a little lower down our list of perceptions has got a slightly stronger worth than we might give it credit for. So there's a similar story with some food in South Africa.
I think without a doubt, I think we've been spoiled for many years as South Africans, particularly white middle-class South Africans, where we only ever dined on prime cuts because that's what we could afford. Those times have changed. And now we are reverting to what the rest of the world does and has been doing forever and a day, and that's respecting the entire animal and learning how to eat the entire carcass. We're learning what to do with chine. We're learning that chuck on the fire is a glorious piece of meat. What to do with it. That as a braai steak is quite something, and it's really, really well priced. So I think this is being forced upon us by economics, and I think it's a fantastic thing. I think we have to look further afield for value. So we've had to do a little bit more research. We've had to have a little bit more nous in terms of knowing what it is we're doing with the meat that we're buying, or whatever it is that we're using. And I think as a result of the kind of, especially in the last 2 years, when people have really been pushed to the wall economically, I think that there's those cheaper cuts will find a pride of place on tables, because people will treat them with the respect that they deserve and realize that there really is beautiful food out there. It doesn't have to be about primal cuts.
Well, I hope you'll be proud of me then, Chef. Yesterday's Sunday lunch included a 5-hour slow-cooked short rib in red wine and a potato and chorizo Spanish stew with loads of white wine and chicken stock and bay leaves. So not too expensive, but absolutely delicious.
Well, I think, Dan, you'll find that us down here in the Cape might have to wait till July for that kind of food. It's just a little too hot down here at the moment for any kind of braisers. So we're all about light grills and that kind of stuff at the moment, because we're taking advantage of the fact that we're still sitting outside at 8 o'clock in the evening while it's light around the fire, toasting something a little bit here. So we're going to take advantage of one of the most glorious summers we've had in years. So yeah, the braisers, they can wait.
Well, speaking of summer weather and food and drink to go with it, Tuanni's got some bubbles. Tuanni, they formed the second part of your purchase. It's a warm day in the Cape. How's bottle number 2 going down?
Oh, it's so refreshing. I mean, I love Durbanville Hills, and I love what Pete was talking about, because South Africa does have great value for wines, and there's a lot of regions that people forget about, like Paro, like Durbanville Hills, and Durbanville, and this one it's nice. It's refreshing. The bubbles are very, very active. It's a sparkling wine. It's not a Cape Classique, but it's very refreshing, and it's not sweet at all. It's just very fruity, and I like it a lot. It has a really great finish, and you get a lot of strawberries and watermelon. And I'm going for Chinese dinner with my friends tomorrow, and I'm like, gosh, this would be perfect for dinner. So yeah, it's good.
Give me a sense, Tuanni, on the subject of value from your perspective, which is a unique one in that you know our South African wine world intimately, but you also know the American space particularly well. We like to think that our wine, as South African, combines both incredible value with great quality, and that's what makes it such a great prospect. Is that the sense from your American friends, your American guests, that they drink it, they think this is really good, and then you tell them the price, and they ask you if that's the cost of the estate or the bottle? What's the feedback you get?
Well, I mean, listen, I bought 2 bottles of wine today for basically $10 US, right? And they're value bottles, but even in the US, value bottles would be like $10 per bottle. That's what you would get for like a nice quality wine, $10 to $15 per bottle. So like the quality that you get and the price point, definitely it doesn't really equal. It doesn't really match up. I mean, because South African wines are so yummy. They're so delicious. A lot of them are well made. So like, yeah, the quality that you get, and people when they come, I have like a video where I show people how to pack wine in their suitcase, because I always encourage them, like, just take wine home, just take it home. Like you will not be disappointed. And if you try to buy the same quality wine in the United States, you will pay 3 to 4 times as much. So yeah, it's very, very much good value for the money.
Not a surprising response, but it's a wonderful endorsement to get nonetheless. I'm interested, having done this now, Tuanni, having picked this up, do you think it's going to become a bit more of a routine, a bit more of a habit, once a week, once a fortnight, stick your head into Pick and Pay and right, for 200 Rand, I'm going to sort out 4 bottles of wine that'll do me for a few glasses with a friend or two over the next week?
Oh no, it definitely needs to become a habit. Like I really encourage, like a lot of people, even people who like, listen, I mean, I go wine tasting a lot, and I usually buy my wine directly from the wine farms. And that's very special to me, because usually I'm talking to the winemaker, and it's a moment, and it's a moment in time. So I love that experience. However, it's nice on a Tuesday night to just open up a bottle of wine that I don't have to attach to an experience. I can just attach to like a really good bottle of wine. So, I mean, I feel like lots of people should, probably, even if you are somebody like me who has access to quality wine and you can get it, pretty easily, it's just a good experience to go to the grocery store and like stock up on some really inexpensive wines.
And it's also the opportunity. We get many people who watch the show. Greg Sherwood, who's watching at the moment, being a good example. I mean, Greg drinks 5,000-pound bottles of wine on a regular basis. There are many South Africans who they will drink up to maybe a 500 Rand bottle of wine once a week. But for 50 Rand, if you've only ever drunk Sauvignon Blanc, this is your chance to get something like we've had with the Shannons today for a couple of Rand more, and try a new varietal, try something different, have a bit of adventure, knowing that you haven't had to invest too much money in the process.
Exactly. That's why I got the Vino Tinto, because I was like, man, how many opportunities do I get to taste a Portuguese wine? When I was in Los Angeles, it was pretty easily and pretty accessible. But in South Africa, you don't get to taste a lot of different varietals unless you kind of take some time and just really look in the grocery store and find them. And you know what? I'm happy. I'm proud of my 40 Rand that I spent on this bottle.
I think you've captured exactly what I wanted everybody to do today, which is that sense of adventure and finding some really cool and exciting wine for the start of what I hope is going to be a really cool and exciting year for all of us. Just getting a sense of what lies ahead. Pete, I know that the two restaurants now, we've seen a fair bit of you braaiing your way around South Africa with one of my favorite television series, which I see is now popped up on, I think it's on Netflix as well at the moment. You're everywhere, Pete Goffe-Wood. How is the 2022 horizon looking for Chef Pete?
Well, interesting as always. The last 2 years have taught us anything is not to make too many plans, to allow yourself to be open to what the universe throws at you, and I think that's where we'll take it. We're already talking about shooting season 8 of Ultimate Braaimaster, hopefully come June already this year. So that's on the cards, because season 7 has been very, very well received, both on ETV and obviously now again on Netflix. So that will definitely be in my book. And the other thing which I can't wait to actually start watching is the new series 4 of Ultimate Braaimaster, which starts next month, I do believe, or February.
I think we've just lost a connection on Pete there. We'll try and get back to him in a second. I think it's that shirt. It's just drawing all the power out of his house. But Pete, all over television at the moment, Ultimate Braaimaster is such a fun show, which is a great part of just a natural on television. Tuanni, what about you for 2022? What are the plans? What would you like to see happening in both the world of Tuanni and the broader world of South African wine?
You know what? I am not making any plans. Like Pete, 2020 taught me to just don't plan too much ahead and live in the moment, and to just do the very best that I can. I am hopeful, and I am wishing that, more people come and visit me in Cape Town in South Africa. So that's all that I want for 2022. That's my only wish, is that more people come to Cape Town, to South Africa, come drink wine with me, come explore with me.
Can I possibly add somebody to that list? Could you maybe at some point over the next few months maybe spare some time for a few glasses of wine with Dan?
I would love to. Now, are you going to come to Cape Town, or do I have to go to Johannesburg?
I'll come down to Cape Town. I promised Savage that I'll go and pillage his cellar, so maybe you can help me do that.
Yes, come to Cape Town. Come during harvest season. We can work together. I'm sure Duncan would love to have us cleaning some tanks or doing something.
Count me in. I would love to do that, and we're certainly overdue that. I think we've managed to wrestle Pete back in, and
yes,
as well. So, Pete, just a confirmation, you were telling us Ultimate Braaimaster.
Yes, Ultimate Braaimaster. We're looking at possibly a new season in June. But what I'm super excited about is season 4 of South African MasterChef starts this month. Starts February. So I'm looking forward to watching that. 3 brand new judges, the superb judging panel. I think the program is going to be well worth watching. So I'm looking forward to what they have in store for us. So I'm very excited about that.
Some great food television for us to watch. And we'll be having those MasterChef judges on the show ahead of the new series starting, which is the very end of February. Mr. Savage, before we all wrap up for the evening, you have spoken to us about the upcoming harvest and the pretense that you're going to be doing some work. 2022 is a year. What are you hoping for? What would you like to see, not just from the Savage Empire, but for South African wine in the year ahead?
Well, I'm hoping it's a year that Dan Nicol will actually come for a braai instead of all these empty promises I've been getting for months. Tuanni, don't hold your breath, though. Don't hold your breath. No, this is we take it as it comes. It's the wine industry. The difference for us, we didn't travel so much, but I mean, other than that, we carried on. We farmed, we did our thing, we made some lacquer wines, we drank lots of lacquer wines, and I think that's the thing. We're going to travel a bit this year. Greg asked the question. Gregals, I'll see you in May, but we won't travel as much, I think, as we did in the past, which has been actually quite nice because we've been allowed to really focus on a lot of cool vineyard projects. We're planting 2 really nice vineyards now, which are super. The one in particular is mind-blowingly exciting. So all of that stuff just takes time and comes on stream and all of that. So yeah, we're gonna go through our motions and take it as it comes. If we can travel, then great. We've got a few mates and I've got a little surf trip planned if the country eventually lets South Africans in, but we'll make a plan at some stage. But yeah, it's going to be good.
Sounds like another year of misadventure and good times for Duncan Savage, as it does for our other 2 guests. Pete, Tuanni, Duncan, thank you so much to all of you for joining me this evening. And thanks for being part of this little experiment. It's one I actually want to try and do more often, because I think not only does it get those of us who maybe not into the grocery stores as often as we should be, and to get a real look at what's there, but I think we've dug up some really cool wine today, and we've done so at some fantastic prices. And to have the great Duncan Savage drinking 4 Cousins Chateau Libertas and Autumn Harvest out of Zalto glasses, where 1 glass is the same price as the entire harvest of all 3 of those wines put together, makes for a benchmark in online South African wine TV. Guys, thank you. I'm going to make a promise here, because Duncan's been very rude about me, but not without justification. Savage, I'm coming for a braai. Tuanni, I'm coming for a glass of wine. And Pete, we've already spoken about doing some filming at the new restaurants, but I shall be down there as well, and really looking forward to spending some time with all of you in person. But until then, thank you for opening our eyes to some great value wine, having a lot of fun in the process, and doing what is my favorite thing, which is sharing South African wine with really cool people, and that's exactly what we've done today. So to all of you, thank you very, very much.
Cheers, Dan.
Thanks, Dan.
Cheers, guys.
Cheers.
So there we go. Tuanni Price, have a look at zuriwine.com. She's been a great force for good in American-South African wine relations. Duncan Savage and his Savage wines. My cellar's littered with them. I can't stop buying them. They're just sensational and really, really good value when you look at what you're getting. And then my very, very good friend Pete, who taught me just about everything I know about cooking, including how to put the fire out on most of the stuff I get going with. And he's got such a great palate. To all 3, thank you. We've had some really fun wine this evening. It's been a really cool edition of the show, which is what we try and repeat every show. I like to think we get it right more often than we don't. Coming up on Thursday, we've got a few people. Amongst them, Ed Bjuchers from Land's End, talking about some wine from Elm. A whole pile of it arrived just before Christmas. I get the chance on Thursday to taste it and to find out about this extension of the Du Toitskloof brand. We'll also be chatting to the team at Anthony Rupert, who've got a brand new 8-year-old cuvee, the Lomaran cuvee. It's been waiting since 2014 to make an appearance. It gets sprung on the world officially on Friday, so Thursday evening we'll be running through it. And I think we might have something on the Harvest Festival as well. So another busy week. But remember, tomorrow, look out online, the first of our magazine shows for 2022, coming to you from Zoo, which is loads of fun and really gorgeous. We've got both Stuart Butter and new releases from Takara, as well as
We've got wine from the method ancestral approach of making bubbles, and that's from Vondeling, and a competition, your chance to win a weekend away at Bartley and a case of 5-star platter Hourglass Chardonnay. No reason not to be watching. That wraps us up for today. Enjoy the rest of your Monday. Huge thank you to Tuanni Price, to Duncan Savage, and to the great Pete Goffe-Wood. Enjoy the rest of your evening. We'll see you at the magazine show tomorrow. I'll see you live again on Thursday evening. Good night. To join the Pick and Pay Wine Club, simply SMS your smart shopper number to 36775. It's absolutely free, and you'll get for yourself 3 times the smart shopper points on every bottle of wine bought. You'll also get a 20% discount on 10 different wines each month, a 25% discount on a case of wine, and a Magnum, some terrific competitions and invitations to awesome events.